Hello and welcome to Creighton in the Community. My name is Joyce Bunger and I'll be your host. One look around Creighton and you'll see that the landscape is changing. And here to talk about it is Mary Duda, the Sustainability Coordinator at Creighton University. Now Mary, one of the first things I asked you was Sustainability Coordinator. Is that something you grow up to be, a Sustainability Coordinator, or are all organizations having them? Tell me about your role.
It's getting to be a more and more organizations are hiring somebody with the title Sustainability Coordinator or manager or something like that. No, it's not something you grow up being. Maybe kids today do. I certainly didn't. My background is in chemical engineering. And I work in environmental health and safety. That's my primary position, and it's a part of facilities management. And it's kind of grown out of there. Part of environmental health and safety is protecting the environment, shipping hazardous waste, maintaining chemicals, things like that. And working in facilities, you know, part of what we do is all the energy on campus, all the water, steam, air conditioning, all that kind of stuff. So my job has kind of grown out of, my sustainability coordinator job has grown out of my primary position as environmental health and safety.
Well, let's talk about each of those things.
Okay.
Give me an example of, at Creighton University, what you focus in on, like for, you mentioned, I think, energy. What are some things so that we can put our arms around it?
Well, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe, Creighton started an energy awareness committee. Before this was something that people were even concerned about. And those people are looking at how do we make people aware of wasting energy and do things better. So I got involved in that early on when I first started working
What were some
here.
of the first things you did?
It was little things like noticing, hey, that light's on in the middle of the day. Why does that need to be there? There's some outside the library, for instance, that are on all the time. Why? Can we shut those off? Little things like that. And as it's grown, it's been, hey, when you leave at night, make sure you shut your lights off. One of the earlier things we did was an energy siesta, they called it.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. So it was once a month on a Friday afternoon. Hey, everybody, at 11 o'clock, shut your stuff off. Shut off your coffee pot and all your lights. Anything you're not actively using, shut it down. And it was a little competition between departments of, it was a percentage because obviously none of our buildings are the same size, same amount of people. So the winner would get an energy siesta fiesta. So we'd go up there with a nacho cart and give people a little party for, hey, thanks for saving energy. So
people just weren't aware of it. I do remember when that was going on, and you just have really hard habits to break.
You do.
Yes.
You do. And
okay, so what are some others? We have the energy. You said water was one.
Water. We actually have hired a person in facilities management. I don't know how many people are aware of this. He walks around at night checking to see if people left their lights on, and he shuts them off.
Get out.
And he is saving the university money by doing that. He pays for his position by doing that.
My.
And he leaves them a little note saying, hey, guess what? You left your lights on.
Well, guess what? I've never gotten one of those notes.
I'm glad to hear that. Neither have I, so
yes.
I'm glad to hear that.
What are some other areas you monitor?
Water consumption.
Like, for instance?
The Harper Center and a couple other buildings have the sprinklers, and they have monitors that tell you, hey, it rained last night, and shut themselves off so that they don't give too much water to the turf and stuff like that.
And I know that there also is, it doesn't take long to drive by campus and you see the solar panels.
Right.
What's been the impact? Can you talk about that project a little bit, about the solar panels?
Sure. One of the impacts is, obviously, they're producing power for the university. It's about 100 kilowatts. But the bigger impact is the teaching and the learning that's going to come out of them. You're going to talk about the energy technology majors. That's what those panels are designed for. They come apart so that students can get up there and take things apart, put them back together, learn how they work.
Oh.
And it's Creighton students, and it's also going to be Metropolitan Community College students coming by, being able to take these things apart, looking at the inverters, looking at how you attach them to the panels, everything. So that's the bigger impact, is teaching students. And it's a really neat thing.
We were talking to, I was in reviewing for the show, I noticed that transportation is certainly impacted. The zip car, which
Right.
the purpose of the zip car is to do what?
It's to allow students or any community member, anybody in Omaha can get a
Rent it, borrow it,
rent it.
rent it.
And you need to be a member. So you sign up for a card and you can rent it for as little as an hour or up to 2 days. So if a student is on campus and doesn't have a car, they can check it out, do a Target run, go run down to the old market for dinner, even check it out for the day and go explore eastern Nebraska. So we're hoping to keep some students keep their cars off of campus, reducing the impact of people driving back and forth to campus, and reducing the need for more parking lots.
And I know that bicycling is another thing that's really, really key, that there's a big emphasis on bicycling.
We've noted, well, the city has painted what they call sharrows on the road on Birch Street for bicyclists to have a lane on Birch Street. And the student group is, the Green Jays have really gotten active this past semester on bicycling. They're looking at how can they store their bikes over the winter. They think one of the impediments to people bicycling is that they don't have anywhere to keep their bikes over the winter, that it's safe and out of the elements. So they've really been working with facilities on where can we store our bikes, how can we encourage more students to bicycle. They want to have, with the community bike shop, a partnership where they can learn to work on your bikes. You can, if you work 20 hours at the community bike shop, you earn a bike. So the students are really pushing the bicycling, and it's a good thing.
Students seem to be really, really actively involved and very committed to this. Are you having as much luck with people like myself, the staff and the faculty, to raise their consciousness about the environment? And
in the last year or maybe 2 years, it's really taken off. The faculty and staff are really picking up a lot more classes being offered, a lot more people coming to our meetings saying, hey, how can I help? And you know, our guy that walks around turning off lights is turning off less lights.
Why do you think that is? Why are people suddenly more concerned? Is it just kind of a overall commitment on Creighton's behalf, or?
I think it's a little bit of everything. It's, you know, the people at Creighton, I think, are concerned about the greater good in general. So if by shutting off a light they can help save some energy, save some power for somebody else, they're willing to do that. It's little things. And part of it, I think, is a little bit of peer pressure that, hey, everybody else is doing it, I need to do this too. So we're getting a lot of impact, I think.
So it isn't always, it's sustainability really, and in preparing for this show, I remember you saying it's all about stopping waste.
Yeah.
And so it's, and let me also ask a question. I know that I did a show on sustainability a while back, and we talked about on campus the Wareham building, how that probably is one of Creighton's best examples of sustainability. Can you talk about that with me?
There's a lot of neat things about that building. It's an old building, probably 100 years old, so it was repurposed. And not only was it repurposed, but we got to save its historical value. It is on the historic register, so we got to save its historic value. The parking lot next to it was an old plating facility, and the EPA gave us a $250,000 grant to clean up that site and put in the parking lot. So that was a huge deal. There were only 3 grants given in Nebraska that year, and we were one of them. The building, they were the first ones to do single stream recycling. They have geothermal wells. They've got lots of big energy efficient windows for natural light. And it's just a really neat.
And there's not very many garbage cans in that building.
Well, that's how we do single stream recycling.
I know. Talk a little bit about single stream recycling.
Single stream recycling is similar to what you would do at your home. So it's everything, plastic, paper, everything but glass, because the city doesn't do glass either. But what they did is when they came through and said you were doing single stream recycling, your trash can got taken and you got a recycle bin in its place. And that includes me. In my building, Father Schlegel has the same thing in his office. With the thought being that 70% of what you create is recyclable. The other 30% is true trash, paper towels, Kleenex, your banana peel from
apple cores,
stuff like that, which personally I don't want in my desk anyway. So the thought is there's a central trash can in all the offices. You get up and go for a little walk and get some exercise and throw your trash away. So it's going well so far.
It is going well. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That to me personally was one of the hardest things to get accustomed to.
Yeah.
But then I was realizing I was sustaining myself, getting up and having exercise and so forth.
And we're in most of the buildings now.
In most of the buildings.
It started off in Wareham 2 years ago, and now almost all the buildings on campus are single stream recycling.
I know sustainability is very, very important at Creighton, and it's infiltrated it has infiltrated the entire university, and that's probably because of Father Schlegel. I believe he had one of the first Priuses, hybrid Priuses in the city of Omaha. Tell me a little bit about the President's Climate Commitment.
Father Schlegel was the first president in Nebraska to sign. It's the American College and University's President's Climate Commitment. And with that, he committed us to reducing our carbon footprint, having a plan sometime in the future to become zero waste and figure out our greenhouse gas analysis. So a consultant is right now figuring out how much greenhouse gas this university produces, and then that's our benchmark, and every year after that we have to take a look at how we're doing and see that we are in fact reducing the amount that we produce. So that was a big deal when he signed that.
Absolutely. I would expect that sustainability takes partners from the outside as well. Are there any significant partners that have kind of helped us in our sustainability efforts?
We talked earlier about the solar panels, and our big partner with that was OPPD. They're providing some of the money for the solar panels and for the Windspire turbines that will be installed in the Lead Center, and part of it helps them too. It doesn't just help us. I mean, we have the panels, but they have committed to producing 10% of their energy from sustainable sources by 2020. So this helps them a little bit to get to that. What it also does is these are panels that their customers can come by and take a look at, kick the tires, as we say, see, is it something that we can install in our place of business, or just use them as demonstration projects. So we're really glad to have OPPD helping us and partnering with us on this project.
Thanks, Mary. Indeed, the landscape at Creighton has changed, from the solar panels and the windmills to the green spaces. When we come back, we will talk with Dr. Jay Leiter to talk to us more about how the students, the faculty, and staff are learning more about the environment. I'm being joined by Dr. Jay Leiter. He is an assistant professor with the Communication Studies Department at Creighton University. First of all, I have to ask, how did a communication studies major or professor get interested in the environment, or was it the other way around?
Well, two ways. One is that I have a personal interest and commitment to a lot of issues of sustainability and environment. But also my research area is about community decision making and the ways in which citizens, elected officials, stakeholders, sometimes business and industry come together to make decisions about their community in a deliberative process, interested in deliberative democracy and those sorts of things. And at the moment, lots of communities are wrestling with issues of environment and sustainability. And if they're not, sometimes they're looking at other issues related to public health or transportation or education and trying to figure these out by thinking about them in terms of sustainability and environment. And so those are the ways in which my interests come into research and teaching. But I also have a commitment to things like food systems and living sustainably and living in a home that hopefully is energy efficient and these sorts of things.
Have you always been interested in the environment? And where I'm going with this is a generational thing. Environment is kind of a new thing to we oldsters, but I think that your generation grew up being more in tune with the environment.
And I would say that's true even more so now with the students that we see. But not really. I mean, I think in high school and college I had some interest in it, and it wasn't until I went to graduate school and started trying to understand political processes at the local level that I really saw when questions of environment are coming to the forefront for communities. And so, for example, when I was in graduate school, I studied a water conservation initiative in Seattle. Even before that, when I was in Omaha doing a master's degree, I was working with an institute called the Joslin Institute for Sustainable Communities and thinking about how these kinds of things are being influenced in the decisions we make about our communities.
Let's talk more about that. I know as we were preparing for today's show, you mentioned that you're doing work out in some of the small towns in Nebraska. Take me to that small town and tell me what your role is and what you're encountering.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of working with the Joslin Institute, again, since I've returned to Omaha after graduate school, and they were funded for a couple of projects by the Nebraska Environmental Trust. The first one was a series of sustainability leadership workshops where we literally went to communities, 22 of them across the state, and held workshops about sustainability leadership. So it was not only questions about how we come to know sustainability in the context of making decisions about our communities, but what sustainability is.
That's good. I think that would probably be the first thing they're going to sustain a what?
Exactly, and especially in rural communities, what sustainability is really hard to figure out because they're so dispersed in population. Oftentimes they're dependent on one industry. Their healthcare services are spread thin. So asking these questions, and we did that for about 2 years. And then after that, the Nebraska Environmental Trust funded a second project, which is underway now, a series of conversations about critical resources in Nebraska. We just had one in November at Creighton University, and there's 3 other partnering institutions, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Central Community College in Grand Island, and then Western Nebraska Community College in Scotts Bluff. And each of those places will be convening larger conferences where we'll be asking, or having conversations about land, water, food, energy, and materials is the 5th one. So the work that I've been doing is really trying to figure out how to build the capacity of the entire state, and I know that's a big task, but be part of that effort to have people more informed about issues of environment and sustainability to make better decisions about their communities.
So choose a small town, and if you want to call it, make up
How
a name.
about Broken Bow?
We'll
I like Broken Bow.
I like Broken Bow.
Right.
Been there.
Okay.
Talk about how you got to Broken Bow, what you encountered at Broken Bow, and how you laid the issues on the table. Because again, I know I sound like a dinosaur, but you hear the term sustainability. What does that mean, and how do you make that relevant for someone in that town?
It's a great question, and it's a difficult question, and one that I don't have an answer to yet. But when we got to Broken Bow, we were in a meeting with, if I'm not quite right on this, it's pretty close. The mayor was there, I believe the director of the library, a person from the radio station. I think there was a public health person there. And some other, local city official types in Broken Bow, with also some folks from the surrounding region. On the town square at the extension office, having a discussion about what it means. Now, every community in rural America is experiencing, or at least perceiving they're experiencing, some level of hardship because their young people are fleeing in droves. Economic uncertainty is an issue, and then you pile on top of that, issues of environment with regard to water and agriculture and all sorts of things. I think that what communities will ultimately try and figure out how to do is partner with other communities to work together and work more efficiently, so that we integrate healthcare systems, for example, instead of 2 communities holding the burden of funding a number of services. Maybe they would work together. We've seen this in school consolidation. I'm not saying this is the only way, but most of the time the conversations about sustainability end up with a conversation about how do we work with other communities like us who are also suffering. And so this is where a communication professor gets interested, because it ultimately then rests on their ability to cooperate, in face-to-face ways, meetings and that sort of thing, to make decisions that are really hard about who gets what and how they get it.
I get it. So sustainability doesn't have to just do with saving the planet. Sustainability has to do with maintaining the integrity of that community so that it can sustain itself.
There are lots of definitions of sustainability, and one that comes out of one of the original ones comes out of a UN book called Our Common Future, and it basically goes like, doing things to our planet today that won't harm future generations, something like that. The institute where I work thinks about sustainability as the balance. This is the Joslin Institute for Sustainable Communities, as the balance between environment, economy, society, technology, public policy. I'm blanking on one. But the idea is it can be both a decision-making model, but also a way to think about indicators or ways in which we might measure moving toward more sustainable conditions. And part of the idea is you have to know where you are, and then how do we make better decisions that puts these things into balance.
So where are you in the process with Broken Bow?
Well, that's interesting. They are coming back, hopefully, many of the folks who've been there. And Broken Bow is an example. There's all sorts of communities that are being worked with through this project. But hopefully they've been to these smaller workshops, which are about 15 a piece, and now they'll be hopefully coming to our larger conferences, because again, the idea is if they're going to work together in a regional way, the more we can facilitate processes where they come together and talk about these issues, the more capacity we'll build for them to make these decisions.
Since a key part of our show today is on energy and resources, is that an easy topic to address in these small towns, or is that one where you have to like start at the beginning?
It's interesting. I think energy is a very understandable place to start. Sometimes other types of topics aren't quite as easy. Food systems or water systems.
Healthcare, I would think, be very political.
Well,
what about the gas line coming through Nebraska? Is that something that's...
we at this conversations conference, we had people who are very much in line with what I would call an environmental commitment, and they would advocate for the pipeline. Lots of people are against it. So that particular issue, I think, is a very important one. If you're thinking about the Panhandle, there's an economic gain for if that pipeline comes through. So again, I'm not sure I'm the best person to advocate for any one position. My interest is in figuring out the ways in which people can go through these types of difficult decision-making processes and make the best decision that they can feel comfortable with.
I know another topic we talked about in preparing for the show was, I think you said that perhaps I would be surprised at how many classes at Creighton do include this sustainability or this energy type of conversation. Give me some examples.
Well, I bring that up because it's really important to think about with education and the students that come in here. They can do what they want to do in their majors, but find lots of ways to learn about environment along the way, environment and sustainability. And so I know English has a number of courses in composition and literature that touch on issues and topics of environment, about how it's been written about and how we write about it. There's a green chemistry class. That's not actually the technical name for it, but I know Aaron Gross teaches a class in green chemistry.
Tell us what green chemistry is.
I don't know. You should take the class. But Dr. O'Keefe has a class that he has called God is Green, and it's about Christianity and the environment, which is a very interesting thing for Creighton. There is a course in sociology and anthropology. There are courses in rural sustainability, but also food systems that have been taught for a long time. And then in the spring, I'm teaching a course called Deliberation on Sustainability, which it's a deliberative democracy class. How do we facilitate these processes? But the issue that we're going to choose to deal with is a sustainability issue here on the Creighton campus.
Well, I do want to talk just a second about the student group, what are they called? The Green Jays. I love it. We have our Blue Jays, now we have Green Jays. Tell me a little bit about that organization.
Well, I'd say it's an up-and-coming organization that's doing quite well. About 2.5 years ago, another faculty member who's no longer here and I convened a group of a bunch of students from different organizations, Residence Life, the old Environmental Science, Environmental Science Club. There were students working in the freshman leadership program in Cortina, the Creighton Center for Social Justice, CCSJ, has a sustainability track. So lots of interest.
Lots of scattering.
What we tried to do, and I'm not sure how successful we are, but I think we've got some momentum, was to say maybe there's a way that we could have a clearinghouse organization that would really serve to coordinate a lot of the activities. A lot of different groups were doing similar kinds of projects. I don't know if we're doing that very well, but Green Jays has become a thing now that's recognizable as this is what they do. In the first couple of years, the idea was to really think about leadership and how we want to structure the organization to keep it going. Student organizations, their students graduate, and then when we need to work on leadership.
Sustainability.
Exactly. So now what they've decided to do was to organize the Green Jays around project areas. So they're not really an awareness or social movement kind of group. They bring people in who want to work on a project. And so I think they're being successful now at targeting, doing certain things, working on that for a while, and then when they've had some success, they might choose something else.
Can you give me some examples of specific projects the students are working on?
Yeah, they've chosen some really interesting ones. The first one that I can think of is that they've got a bike share program. They've taken a lot of the bicycles that have been left on bike racks over the years, and they're refurbishing them, and they're going to be painted a similar color, maybe green, I'm not sure, and students can use these bikes on campus whenever they like. They've also been working hard to get the community garden and composting programs going. And their big project, which will launch in the spring, is which is funded by the student organization, student government, will be a Ban the Bottle project, where the research is pretty clear that water bottles are an environmental disaster, the ones that we purchase, and so they want to encourage students to be committed to using a reusable water bottle instead of buying water bottles on Creighton campus. So those are just a few examples.
It's amazing. Thank you. Well, whether it's the students, the faculty, or the staff at Creighton University, we're all doing our part to save the planet. On behalf of all of us at Creighton University, thank you for watching.